Hello sideboarders, it's Elysia, and guess what? Woo! You just got your creator kit, and now it's time to make your very own sideboard. To make your creator kit, the very minimum you will need as far as tools would be a Phillips head screwdriver, a drill with a 3/16 inch drill bit, a pen, and a piece of paper to make your template. Add a ruler in there to make sure that everything is centered. Your other optional tools that you may want would be a 3/8 inch countersink that goes with the 3/16 inch drill bit. This is a standard size and works with the shape of our bolts that we give you. Instead of marking your rail holes with a pen, you can mark it with a punch and a hammer. Additionally, you may want to tape your template down, scissors to cut out your template, but always remember your safety gear. The quick version of putting your board together is to find out which rail size you want, trace it on a piece of paper, cut out the template, place that on your board, tape those guys down. It's time to start marking your holes. Tap. And then take your template off, put your safety gear on, and drill your holes. Magically, your rail holes come in, and it's time to put your hardware in. Got my rail all put together, and it is ready to go onto the board. Put the nuts into the recessed area of the rail, and we need to tighten just enough so that those catch. So your rail is about 50% on there. Now we really need to secure it on there. Voila! Here is your rail on your board. And for your board top, remember that we suggest a higher end birch plywood or a hardwood. Ours are 5/8 in thickness, which is 11 ply, which has a weight limit of 220 pounds or 100 kilograms. If you're heavier than that, then I would suggest a thicker board that's either 13 or 15 ply. So make sure you have a good board top in great condition. Here we go. I suggest that you have at least 4 inches from the end of the rail to the end of the board. All right, so you have now configured your rail, you know what size you want, and now it's time to make your paper templates. On the starter kit, the distance between the width is 8 and 3/8. So an easy trick to do is to draw 2 parallel lines. When you draw the 2 parallel lines, it ensures that your holes are all going to line up. Once in a while, as the urethane cures and cools, sometimes you get a very slight amount of warping, and this makes sure that everything is in line. So you're going to place your rail on that line with the holes, and we are ready to trace the rail. Trace the inside and the outside. After you trace the inside and the outside, you're going to mark the rail holes. And remember, the holes have a little bit of play forward and backwards, so if you don't quite get right in the center, you're okay. I'm just going to go straight into the recessed area for the nut. And now it's time to cut that out. To make sure that your rail is centered, what you would do is take a ruler and measure from the perimeter to your rail holes. So I've got 3 inches here, 3 inches here, 3 inches here, so I know that this is correct. The other trick you can do is place the rail on the board, center it from the ends and from the width using a ruler. It may take you a few minutes to get that all squared away and dialed in. Just depends on how precise you want to be. Normally at sideboards, we place the rail on the center of the board, but if you wanted to do something unique, you could place the rail on the back side of the board or the front side. And what you would do is you would create an unequal weight distribution. So for example, on this surf starter, if you place the rail closer to the back side, your back foot is going to fire up more compared to your front foot if you're standing with the equal weight position. So you can play around with that and have some fun. Once you find your center, tape those down, and then it's time to start marking your holes. You can do that with a pen and pencil, or I like to use a punch. You could also use a nail, but you need something somewhat sharp. And when you use a punch and punch into the wood, the drill bit will actually grab better and make sure that it stays centered. To find where you want to place your hole, because you do have about 3/4 of an inch of play, I usually go a little bit towards the end, and that way the nut can catch 4 of the sides rather than just the 2. And then take your template off and you are ready to start drilling your rail holes. What I like to do is put a piece of scrap wood underneath so that it doesn't blow out the bottom of the board. I use a drill press with a special countersink bit. If you don't have one of these fancy countersinks, you can use 2 drill bits. Drill your first hole with a 3/8 bit, just a little bit to make that nice wide angle, and then drill into the center with your 3/16. So I'm going to use my 3/16 with my countersink. Just put that into a standard drill if you don't have a drill press. The drill press is the best because you're going to get that nice vertical line. Drill your holes vertical. Here we go. Okay, we have our rail holes drilled. I'm gonna be back in 1 second so I don't get sawdust everywhere. Okay, and I'm back. Your clean board. What I would suggest is do a little bit of sanding, light sanding around the rail holes. After you've drilled your holes for the rail, you want to put your sanding sealer on your board, put your own artwork on there, and then a grip texture. You can either use grip tape or you can use a texture within your varnish or your acrylic, whichever you're choosing to use. Some people like to use sand, some people like to use grip particle. Me personally, I like to have grip on the top and grip on the bottom surface, and that way when I'm grabbing the board in certain positions, I've got a consistent feel and a consistent texture so that I know that I'm not going to slip. But whatever you do, make sure that you have some texture on there so that you don't slip. So I'm still working with a raw board, and we're just going to put the rail on there. If you're using a thicker wood, you may need to get a longer bolt. My drill bit is a little bit tight, so they don't slide in. All right, and then we're going to put these bolts all the way in there. Okay, all your bolt holes are in, and now it's time to turn it over and place your rail. Alrighty, it's time to put the nylon locking nuts into the recessed area of the rail. So what I'll normally do is turn it to the side and then place it in just on top of the bolt. Alrighty. So the nuts are just sitting right on top, and we need to tighten. You can either use a screwdriver or a drill. And what I usually do is I just take my index finger and hold the nut there for a little bit of tension, and then I'm going to tighten that down just enough so that it catches. So your rail is about 50% on there. Now we really need to secure it on there. So I'm going to face it down and I'm going to get some tension. So if you're using a drill driver, what I'll do is dial it down so that it doesn't continually tighten, and that way I'm not sinking so far into the wood. Your rail is now on your board. The bolts are countersunk, really nice. Everything's super smooth, and voila! Here is your rail on your board. All of the nuts are countersunk into the rail, so nothing should be sticking up. Everything should be nice and smooth. When you do your skate kit, you're going to do the same process. Figure out which rail size you want, trace it onto a piece of paper and cut that out, marking your rail holes, and then place that template onto your board. Tape it on there, mark it with your pinholes, and then drill your rail holes. Since skate decks have that natural curvature, it may be difficult for you to actually get your rail to connect and lay flat on the board. So what I will do is use a set of clamps. After I get the bolts through there, I will clamp one side down. And if you can see that I actually have that tight on one side, and look at all this space. So that's going to be difficult for you to tighten down. And there we go. Put 2 clamps on your board, one on each side, and that will secure the rail to the curvature of that board so that you can tighten it down easily. Alrighty, sideboarders, have fun building your board. Send us some pictures because we love seeing what everybody's creating. For more information, check us out at sideboards.com. Jump into the next generation. And if you're a sideboarder, remember to continue to break the rules. For more information, check us out at sideboards.com and jump into the next generation. La da 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 da. Do 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 do.
Whoa, am I breaking that?
Finally got it.
Was that good?
Hold 1 second.